Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com presents the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to special episode 220.5 of the Strength Coach Podcast. My name's Anthony Renna. You can get all the show notes and all of my other podcasts at continuefit.com. It's where I keep everything, including Strength Coach TV. All right, we're doing a special episode today. I wanted to talk about the Pro Coaches Clinic at Body Space Fitness in New York City on December 20th. Today, we're going to have an episode with all four presenters, doing about 5 minutes each on their topic. So we have Mike Boyle, Reg Grant for the New York Rangers, Mark Fitzgerald from the Anaheim Ducks, and Devan McConnell from UMass Lowell. And today, like I said, we're going to talk about what they're talking about that night, and then a special offer for you, the Strength Coach Podcast listener. It's going to be a great event. It starts at 4:30 p.m. It goes till 10. It won't end there, though. We'll be hitting the bars afterwards for some networking. Each presenter is going to do a 45-minute lecture, and then we'll have a roundtable that I'm going to lead, and then we'll have a Q&A right after that. Each of those will be about 30 minutes, so you can get your questions in. Everyone who signs up gets a free month of StrengthCoach.com. We're going to be doing giveaways from our sponsors, who are Perform Better, Intech Strength, Iron Grip Barbell Company, and Superhuman Strength. So we'll also be having CEUs from the NSCA, so we're applying for those. Now, the early bird special, which was $149, that's gone. The price is $225. But if you use the link on the page for this episode at continuefit.com, you will get the early bird discount. So it's $149 for my listeners. That's a $75 savings. So make sure you go to this page for this episode at continuefit.com, or you can shoot me an email to strengthcoachpodcast@gmail.com. But enough said about that. Let's get on the phone with Coach Boyle, start talking about each presenter's lecture. All right, Coach. So it's your turn here on this special edition of the podcast, where I just want to talk a little bit about your talk at the event. It's going to be on on sports conditioning, on really not just sports conditioning, but conditioning in general. And like I was saying to you, is like you've kind of learned so much since you did a lot of research for the product. But then when you put it out, still a lot of discussion, a lot of questions, because it's still a lot of gray areas. Just go over a few things, really, because the lectures at this event on December 20th are only 45 minutes long. We want to kind of see what have you learned since then. Talk to us a little bit about the direction you're going with this lecture.
Yeah, well, I think one of the big things it's done for me is help to clear up the gray, and I think that's probably what I'll do in this presentation. Is I'll go in and kind of hit on the areas that maybe emerged as a little more gray than I thought they would be during the course. Because, again, I think that was 8 hours, 7 hours, something like that total between lecture and practical. And you realize, as you said, sometimes we talked about it yesterday in our staff meeting. I still, no matter what the feedback has been, nothing has changed for me in terms of what I'm going to do or how I'm going to do it. But I think my ability to explain to somebody why we are doing what we're doing will be more clear. And we talked about this yesterday. We talked about the kind of inverted pyramid approach and building work capacity and not really caring about energy systems. I think everybody gets so caught up on, I was in the terminology, the Joel Jameson stuff. Is that alactic, or is that alactic aerobic, or is it pure, ATP, and I'm like, I don't care. Watch the game. Let's design a program that gets somebody in shape for the game. And let's not worry about, that was actually 38% aerobic system that was contributing to their energy demand during the course of that, 1 minute interval. I'm like, whatever. I know hockey is 45 seconds to 55 seconds a shift. And I know that it's going to be in a 1-2 or 1-3 kind of rest to work ratio. So that's what we should be working in. And I think that's the kind of stuff that I think I will be able to clear up more for people as we talk about conditioning. And then most importantly, I think, because we are going to have this be a little bit more general, is related to the general public. Like, okay, how does this apply just the whole heart rate monitoring idea? Because we've gotten a lot of questions about heart rate monitor. Why did you settle in at 60%? Why do you use 120 as a recovery heart rate? And sort of being able to look at all this stuff for people and maybe do a little bit better job of showing them this idea of heart rate reserve, and maybe do a little bit better job of showing them some of the ways that we thought to get to where we are. Because I think that's really what you're trying to do, is explain, okay, this is what we thought and this is what we're doing. And hopefully somebody can look at that and be in a situation where I think, oh, I understand. I know exactly now why they're doing what they're doing. And it's interesting. I just read, and I may try to incorporate some of that. Joel Jameson wrote an article that he put out today about intensity. And again, I think you have to read the article to realize that he's talking about, he's talking really about the CrossFitters again, about the people that are going all out as hard as they can every day, and realizing that we don't do that. We don't advocate that, and we don't do it. We really, for us, as much conditioning as we do, it's probably, it's 15 minutes, maybe. And in the beginning, it's way less. But actually, I'm going to make a note right now, because I mentioned it in my in the staff meeting yesterday. What I should have done is looked at total minutes of conditioning to be able to have people see, because if you look at our week, and this was the thing that I said, so if we did, say, let's just say we did 10, 15-second tempo runs to start out with, you look at that and think, all right, well, 4's a minute, 8's 2 minutes, 10's 2 minutes and 30 seconds. If you're looking at the amount of conditioning that we're doing, and then you said, okay, and then we did, 6 30-second slide board intervals. Okay, there's another 3 minutes. So really, you've got, 11 minutes of conditioning in week 1 of actual work. And then looking at somebody and realizing how in that inverted pyramid structure, we're able to take somebody and say, okay, we're going to go 11, and then maybe we're going to go 12, and maybe we're going to go 15. And eventually, we're going to build our way up, and not necessarily that high, but we're not going to start in a situation, the reverse, where, reverse pyramid, where somebody's developing this, oh yeah, we're going to do 80 minutes in week 1. We're going to run 20 minutes 4 times each time. We're going to bike, 20 minutes 4 times each time. We kind of take the total opposite approach of, we're going to start with probably a higher level of quality and a lower level of quantity. And then we're going to take that up.
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to say, for the Q&A part, or for the roundtable part of our workshop, I was going to make sure everybody read Joel Jameson's All Pain, No Gain, Why the High-Intensity Training Obsession Has Failed Us All. And I want everyone to comment on it and how it's maybe what their thoughts are in terms of how it relates to not only the sports training, but to everyday training. So good stuff. Looking forward to that. So, Coach, thanks for doing this, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks, Sam.
All right, now it's time to have Devan McConnell on, who's the head of hockey performance at the University of Massachusetts Lowell, UMass Lowell, a.k.a. Devan, thanks for coming on.
Hey, man. Thanks a lot for having me.
All right. Well, in doing this, I remember talking to Reg and Mark about, getting you on to do this. And I said, Devan does a great job with taking some of this stuff that everybody else, some of the new trends, and brings it down and makes people who don't always have the means to use some of this technology or some of the new things that are coming out. And he finds creative ways to not only use it, but to express it to some of the other strength coaches on strengthcoach.com. So that's why I was glad when, you're doing monitoring for the masses, and you say that, look, monitoring is an important part of development and game readiness at the pro level and the high college level like that you're at. But sports science technology often requires a hefty budget, but that doesn't always have to be the case. Talk to us about how we can do this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm a big proponent of, sports science, performance science, and utilizing various tools to monitor athletes, monitor adaptation, to get just a better idea of where they're at and if we're improving, things like that. But that being said, you could say where I'm at is sort of a mid-major kind of level collegiately. So we certainly have some budget constraints. So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of tools out there that people talk about that that are outside of our wheelhouse as well. And so we really try to find kind of workarounds. And I think the important thing, and what I'm going to try to talk about in the presentation, is to understand the sort of the overarching goal of what a lot of these different technologies are for, not necessarily what the exact tool is, but, velocity-based training or, force plate information. These are giving you, from a big picture standpoint, a lot of information that can be really beneficial for your clients or your athletes. But there are ways to kind of, as you said, find creative means to find some of the same information that is going to let people that are on a budget or don't have the resources of an NHL team, for instance, be able to get a lot of the same information and gather some of the same, look at some of the same trends over time that are going to help out a lot.
Absolutely. And I think people always tend to focus on what they don't have too and not what they can use. Specifically, I remember talking to you, we had you on and we were talking about how you had discovered through HRV, something that in colleges, what everybody was doing, your season ends in early December, college hockey for that semester, and everybody usually would beat the kids up in the training rooms thinking, hey, now we're not playing any games, you could beat the kids up. But you discovered something that was wrong. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the traditional approach would be, you play games probably till the first week or so of December, and then there's about a 2-week period where usually the athletes are still on campus, but they're just worried about finals. And so you would think, okay, there's no games, practice is limited, we can really get some hard training in here. It's maybe a good time to test the athletes and 1-rep maxes and really, really push the envelope and get them better. But looking at some things like heart rate variability and just some real basic low-budget stuff that we've done, we realized that, this is actually, even though physically there was a decrease in workload for these kids, from a psychological, from a mental standpoint, their stress levels were through the roof dealing with finals and all of this. And they actually were not in a very good place to kind of hit the gas pedal. It was actually a better time to back off and appreciate where the athletes were and not just where we were hoping they would be. And so that was a really important insight kind of early on for me, using some sports science tools that we had that really made me sort of change my thinking about how we were going to train these athletes that was best suited for them, to get them to where they needed to be, not just what we wanted to get done in the weight room, from a periodization standpoint, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think, again, HRV has really, that technology has really, the price has really gone down. So it's very accessible. Just using even heart rate for certain things, like the next morning, to find out where people are kind of at is another way to do things. Also, this idea of kind of asking people questions or, having them fill out pen and paper, those questions when they walk in the door. I think there's a lot of people, sometimes it might be a little bit more work, so people don't want to do it, but there's certainly a lot of ways out there that people can kind of circumvent the higher price technology.
No question. And a lot of times just because the price is higher does not necessarily mean that the information is any better. So you can get a lot of stuff done for relatively cheap, or oftentimes for free, really. And it's just as valuable and just as influential. And I think to touch on sort of the issue of the added workload, and it certainly can be true kind of upfront when you're getting started, but an important thing and something I'm going to talk a lot about is really being able to develop and build a system so that this becomes really efficient and easy to collect this information, to analyze the information and to use the information. And it really shouldn't add a lot of work to your day. And so structuring things in the right way makes a big difference as far as actually being able to use the information, which is the whole point.
Absolutely. That's why I'm excited about this talk, because I think this is really, somebody had asked me, hey, can I go if I'm not, not training high-level athletes? I'm like, absolutely. That's why we're doing this, to kind of see what the guys are working, at a high level are doing and can help all of us out, whether even if it's just personal training clients and some of the people, like the small group type stuff. So really looking forward to this, Devan. So thanks for coming on and sharing a little bit about what you're going to talk about.
Well, I'm really excited for it, and I appreciate you having me on. So can't wait to get out there and see everybody, and it should be a lot of fun.
All right, now I have on Mark Fitzgerald, and Mark is the strength coach for the Anaheim Ducks. His topic is health and recovery on the road. Mark, thanks for doing this.
No problem, man. Good to talk to you, man.
All right, well, this is a problem for really all of us. Anybody that travels, anybody that's busy, when, we obviously all travel to some degree, some of us more than others. And when your whole schedule gets thrown off when you're traveling, your nutrition, your sleep, everything. So talk to us about what you're going to talk about, taking some of the things you learn from being on the road so much to the average person.
Yeah, you know what? It's one of those things where it's always changing. There's almost no norms, other than the fact that you really have to be ready to react, and that's sometimes not the greatest way to look at it, but ready to react and come up with solutions on the spot. There's not always going to be the ideal sleeping situation. I get a lot of emails from companies. Oh, we have these amazing sleep trackers and this and that. It's like, yeah, well, tell your athletes to go to bed at 10 o'clock. I'm sorry, that's overtime. That means we're in a shootout and we're not going to get to bed until 1 a.m. So there's never a nice neat box that all this stuff goes into, and it's really, what can you do on the fly? What can you do? We plan ahead and do the best we can. When we know our itinerary or whatever for a trip, but we got a 13-day trip coming up that starts Friday, and it's one of those things where if we're not prepared, there could be some really terrible repercussions from that, and terrible in the sense of wins and losses and potential for injury and all that kind of stuff. So it's really about being prepared, and it's really about coming up with solutions on the fly that are going to help our athletes. And I think that's where a lot of people think that it has to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but it's what you can do with what's in front of you, and how do you make best with what we got. And that's sometimes, some people might not agree with that, but that's the reality of our world, our travel schedule, our games. We have 5 games in 7 days in this next little stretch with a couple back-to-backs. I mean, it's not ideal. It never is, so it's, unless we're on a really long homestand, which is pretty rare. So it's really, you got to think on the fly.
Yeah, and for the average person, even who travels a lot, it's the same thing. I was in Nashville last week, and I had to wake up at 4. I normally wake up at 5, and I couldn't really do my morning routine. And I'm going right to the place for the workshop, and that was fine. But it's a long day now, and I have to eat. It's 7, 8 o'clock. I get to the Airbnb. I get some great sleep, but now my morning routine, I don't have everything that I normally have here at home. And I don't I walk for 10 minutes on a treadmill, for example. And so I did squats and push-ups for, a bunch of them, like alternating, and just to kind of keep me moving. So like you said, you do got to come up on the fly, but what are some things you feel like that we can do that you've kind of, you are staples almost, as you're prepared, that you're using on the road?
Well, it definitely is nutrition. That's one thing that I can control, whether it's on the plane, at the rink, post-game, pre-game, all that kind of stuff. And that's probably the main focus when we travel, is making sure that nutrition is dialed in. So wherever we are, there's good food available for the players. There's, we order in cold pressed juice, kombucha, anything that we need, depending on if we're going to travel to a colder climate, a big climate change. Usually a lot of our flights are every time we go to the East Coast, it's 5 hours on the plane. So it's making sure our plane food is good, snacks, all that kind of stuff. That's probably paramount. Only because our sleep is so interrupted. There's not much we can do there. It's kind of like, we do what we can with our schedule, but this last stretch of games, we had a 7:30 game last night. We have a practice day today with an event for the players for Thanksgiving, and then we got a 1:00 game tomorrow. Then we drive to LA, and then we play LA Saturday night. So it's like there is no regularity there. The only regularity is the meeting before the game and the actual puck drop. So it's I think nutrition is paramount with our guys, and they know that I'm going to put together the right kind of food for them and make sure that we have everything that they need to perform and to perform at their best.
Mark, what about the rest of the staff? Are you working with the rest of the staff because there's some people obviously aren't playing, you have equipment guys who are working like dogs. You have all these other people on the staff that are there. Are you in charge of that and making sure they're kind of all those recovery strategies are there for them as well?
I wouldn't say in charge, but I definitely will recommend and try to keep them on pace and on track. Like you said, we have a very hardworking staff, and our medical guys and our equipment staff. Most of the guys will work out, we'll train, which is awesome. I try to convince on the nutritional side, but sometimes that's met with disapproval. But you know what? For the most part, when you're at the rink for this long, the weight room is here, and the majority of our guys will get in there and work out and take care of themselves. You really have to, and I think you and I spoke about that last year. When I travel, it's probably I get in better shape than when I'm at home, because I try to keep, with my morning routine, get up at the same time, drink lots of water, and train. And we train on the road quite a bit. Whenever I go to different cities, it's a kind of a cool part of the job. You get to drop into different people's facilities. Like when I'm in Boston, I was going to see Boyle, and different spots, Minnesota, go see Cal. So that's been really cool. Part of this is that you get to go meet with some guys and train hard on the road, and I think that's kind of a nice little escape for me.
Yeah, I always follow on your social media. You always post in your different workouts. Pretty cool. So good stuff. Awesome. Well, I'll remind everybody the talk is health and recovery on the road. You can learn a lot from somebody in the NHL who's traveling, especially somebody from Anaheim, who the West Coast guys travel the most in the league. So pretty brutal. So, Mark, we're looking forward to this talk.
Yeah, you know what? I feel privileged to be a part of such a smart group of guys. With Mike and Devan and Reg. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be small and intimate. And I think those are the best kind of clinics. So I hope people are excited about it, because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely, certainly a lot of nice buzz already, and it's going to be a fun couple days there in New York.
Definitely looking forward to it. Other than the snow and whatever weather you guys got.
Yeah. All right, now it's time for Reg Grant. And Reg is the strength and conditioning coach for the New York Rangers. And his topic is going to be a philosophical approach to strength and conditioning. Reg, thanks for doing this.
Ant, thanks for having me. It's great to be on.
All right, well, I think one of the concerns that you and I and Mark had originally was, people would think, oh, man, there's all these hockey guys in there. But what you're talking about especially really covers the spectrum of anybody can really, if you get this down, you can really apply it to anything. Talk to us about your lecture.
Well, the thing that's been amazing for me is over the last 15 years, I've been exposed to some pretty high-level athletes that have been able to do some incredible things. So with the exercises and the prescription and the systems that we've been able to put in place, I've been able to kind of bounce that off some guys that are pretty spectacular athletes from a skill level and a fitness level as well. So the whole idea is to try and package what I've seen from an athletic perspective, from the connection we have with our medical crew and that whole medical group, and how the system kind of provides recognition of certain things, how we can put prescription for certain things in there, and the whole, more a holistic approach to the whole thing, if that kind of gives you some guidance there.
Absolutely. Well, what are the components that you feel like are the, what's that process or that system that you're going to talk about?
Well, the whole idea initially is that we're going to start from a perspective, if you look at how the athlete gets developed, of how the flexibility, mobility, stability, and then strength, power, and conditioning components get built upon each other. So it's more of a bottom approach. You look at the foundation and that base that you create, and then how do you layer it on top? And at each level, what kind of things are you looking for? So from flexibility, from stability, what's important and why. It's sort of how that philosophical approach gets put together, and then how we connect that into our medical group for the things that might be required there. And it's that holistic approach.
Reg, how can some people will say, man, you're dealing with the best athletes in the world. How can we apply this to regular athletes and general population?
Well, the amazing thing is the system and approach is humanistic in nature. This applies to everyone. It doesn't matter. Some guys might be able to jump higher, run faster, squat more weight, but the principle and philosophy is the same. The benefit of being able to apply with guys that are at a very high level is that you get to see what's happening with, that kind of high level reaction. So somebody that takes that approach, that prescription, and applies it, their bodies might react a little bit quicker. They might recover a little bit faster. It lets us kind of see and test things on the edge. It's kind of like what happens when you have cars that are tested in the F1, and then you go and you put that back into general population and general building cars. And the system, the approach, that's the critical part. And you can apply it with athletes of any level.
Absolutely. Now, what about, I want you to just talk about, you've had, like you said, you've been there 15 years. Tell me a little bit about, in the beginning, what were some of, where you feel, not only you, but where sometimes you see when you're looking at things in the industry that we're kind of missing?
Well, honestly, it's probably the connected approach. And that's bringing together sort of the different specialties, whether it's from sports psychology to sleep, the medical fields, into what we do in the performance realm, the people that specialize in Olympic lifting and more in, just general development. It's getting all of those things in a holistic nature. Back then, there was a lot of kind of separation for it. There was a lot of silos. There was a lot of individual things. And over the years, we've really connected it and brought it together.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing in terms. One of the things that I loved about Titleist when I first started with them in 2006 and their program was this idea about everybody kind of having their role within the team. They kept telling, build your team. You have to have the golf pro, and you have to have the mental coach, and you have to have the equipment fitter. There's all these different. And then there's the subsets, even like, especially with you, like what are we doing with nutrition? What are we doing with the doctors? So that's kind of been, it's funny when we think, wow, the pros weren't even doing that 5-10 years ago, right?
Well, it's always been there to some degree, but it's gotten more connected, if that makes sense. And when you have, as an example, if you look back as to the percent of players, and I don't know the exact stat, that came out of NCAA 20 years ago, it's a lot less than it is right now. So as that increases, as the D1 schools increase in their ability to, produce and performance and that type of thing, and you have guys like Mike Boyle that's been able to put a program in place for many years, and that, there's college athletes getting exposed to that, that whole sort of grassroots nature of it is way bigger. It wasn't around 20, 30 years ago. You had much more individual style things going on, and you didn't have the systems within each NHL team like you do now. So that kind of togetherness and sort of more the grassroots development, it's a lot more prevalent right now than it was before.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Well, we are looking forward to seeing how you put all these things together on the 20th. So, Reg, thanks for coming on and doing this.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to it, and thanks for having me.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for special episode 220.5 of the Strength Coach Podcast. Thanks to Mike Boyle, Mark Fitzgerald, Reg Grant, and Devan McConnell for coming on today. Also, thanks to our sponsors, Perform Better, Intech Strength, Iron Grip Barbell Company, and Superhuman Strength, as well as StrengthCoach.com and Continue. Don't forget, go to this episode page at ContinueFit.com to get the special price. My listeners get the $75 savings, $149. The price is now $225. Remember, we're doing giveaways all night. We have CEUs. It's going to be a great night. So go to continuefit.com to sign up. Any questions, shoot me an email to strengthcoachpodcast@gmail.com.